Filling. Oh, I'm excited to be here today, filling in for Steve, who is sick. I feel badly that Steve is sick, and yet I'm really excited for this conversation and to learn a bit more about the topic of Tai Chi, of stillness, of going within. And so I want to introduce my guest today, Dr. Gary Irwin-Kenyon. And he is the founding chair and professor emeritus of gerontology at St. Thomas University. I love to see that. I have an undergraduate degree in gerontology, and it's so rare to see that. Usually when I say to somebody that I study gerontology, they say to me, I've got this rash on my skin. And I say, no, that's dermatology, different thing. And Dr. Gary is also the creator of Seated Tai Chi as narrative care for long-term care professionals. And we're going to be talking about that. So you have spent your career thinking about aging, about stillness, about story, about truly caring for people. So when you meet somebody for the first time, how do you describe what you do? How do you introduce yourself to them?
Well, if they ask me what I've been doing, I say I'm a gerontologist. As you say, I've been doing this for over 40 years, so it's becoming more common than it was when I started out. And when I say it's a study of aging, then people say, well, how do I fix it? Well, what's the secret? And so I have different answers for that. But part of what we're talking about, I started a subfield in gerontology called narrative gerontology with a colleague and friend of mine, Bill Randall. And so that's what I would say next is when they go to the physical part of aging, I say, well, that is part of it. But we're also interested in the mind and the spirit. And that's where the life story becomes quite important. So then people get quite curious. Well, how does that work?
Yeah. And how does it work? What do you tell them? What is the narrative side? Because it's true, when we think about aging, so often we're thinking about physical decline, or right. People think of cognitive decline. It's so associated with sort of just all this negative. What is that narrative part of aging that you've introduced?
Yeah, well, it's about looking at your life as a story. So we have different kinds of workshops and techniques that we use to help people go into more detail, whether they're professional or non-professional. For example, we might say, well, can you talk about some of the themes in your life, like family or your background, your religious background, or your various things like that. So, and those all have, the idea is that whatever's meaningful to that particular person is what you're interested in learning about. So if it's in a care context, it would be a way of understanding what's meaningful to that person. Now, how do I communicate or connect with them or help them? So it's less of a technical thing, more of a asking questions about what they find meaningful, and then how do they understand their story? Not so much how I understand it, but it's their world, not mine. So, as you know, in dementia, in the old days, it was pretty well ignored that a person had anything going on besides decline and death. A narrative perspective would argue that there's a quiet center to the person. That they have a story, first of all, and within that story, if I give the whole summation of the whole picture, besides the narrative story, there's also a quiet center, which is the stillness part. So now the stillness is a different approach. I talk about the course, but narrative care, which is the spin-off of narrative gerontology would be to use narrative approaches to caring for a person. And it's really in addition to all the other things that we do, medical, social. It's in addition to that you might also be, well, we would say, one of my colleagues said, narrative care is core care. That
Core care.
Core care,
Yeah.
CORE. If someone feels that someone else is really listening to them and trying to understand their story, they might be able to put up with a lot of other inconveniences, say in a care setting, that often come up, right?
Yes, yes. So I find this fascinating. So what is your story that drew you to this work? How did you get drawn to start thinking about that core care of a person?
Um, well, depends how far back we go, but um, I've always been interested in meaning, and
Mm,
also in end of life issues. So when I was back as an undergraduate and graduate student, I was in philosophy actually originally, and then I studied these kinds of things, and then switched. Gerontology was a new field at the time, and I got invited to do a program at University of British Columbia in Vancouver about gerontology, and so I was kind of a pioneer, not the only one, but one of them.
mm.
So I started studying that, and I've also had a lifelong interest in martial arts, in Tai Chi. So I found those things over time were starting to overlap, that I could understand somebody aging by way of a story, and then something about their inside of their story through stillness and Tai Chi.
Mm.
So, so I gradually started publishing papers, professor stuff, teaching, and then one day, this was probably 30 years ago, one of the residents of a nursing home near where I was working told the activity people that she wanted Tai Chi. She was
Mm.
very adamant about Tai Chi. So they said, Gary, can you come over and give us a demonstration and see if anybody's interested? And so I did that. Quite a few people showed up and they liked it. So if we skip ahead, I started teaching at one nursing home, and it ended up being three on a weekly basis. And I created a Seated Tai Chi program back then to do that with these residents, because most of them were seated.
So can we back up for a moment for people who don't know what Tai Chi is and haven't been exposed to it? Can you tell us what Tai Chi is
Yeah, Tai
and what
Chi
it's
is
not, maybe?
Tai Chi is it's an art form that
Mm,
was discovered or created in China a couple of thousand years ago, depending on the books that you read. And it's a healing art and what they call moving meditation.
mm,
The point, Tai Chi is very slow. The movements are slow, soft. And the idea is to try to calm what we call the monkey mind or
yes.
the hamster wheel. Um, so Tai Chi, by way of the movements and the breathing, you start to quite quickly. I mean, it takes time to learn it deeply, but in quite a short time, you can start to feel relaxed, which is the first thing I tell my students is if you feel better, more relaxed when you leave here than when you came in, it's working.
Mm,
Don't worry about the rest of it. So it's a healing art and a meditation art. It's also a martial art, but that's kind of not as commonly taught these days. So it's very much appropriate for us as we get older. Most of the moves can be adapted to pretty well anyone. And if I can bring in the dementia part of it here, um, one of the places I was teaching asked me if I would try to teach a class in the dementia village.
mm.
And I said, well, I don't know. Let's try. So I tried it, and we had music and calm music. A number of people showed up, and it was quite remarkable. It was a game changer for me in what I'd been doing up till then, um, because everyone was quiet. And the staff person at the end said, these people are not quiet.
Wow.
And they're wandering, and they're not always agitated, but they're wandering. And they were all silent and quiet when you were doing the class.
Wow. You
So
know,
it's,
you mentioned wandering, and one of the things that I read about your work was about appreciating the meandering parts of life. And I just love that phrase to think about the meandering parts of life. And I also think about how senior living is so often schedules, and depending on the setting, a lot of regulations, and there's plans of care and all of these things. So how do you think about that sort of that stillness, that core of care inside of a system that is a lot about structure?
yeah, yeah, I've taught the course a number of times now, and all the participants have said, first of all, they say, this is a wonderful time of my week
Mm,
because it's a time for me to drop my monkey mind and to feel relaxed, which I never do because the system is so pressurized. So it brings us to we have a doing mode and a being mode, right, in our
yes.
brain. And we basically in our culture run by the doing mode, but it's becoming very difficult in the workplace, for example, or even at home, because that's why there's so much burnout, because we're trying to do more and more, less and less effectively, because we're only human beings. So stillness, Tai Chi come from the being mode, where it's
Hmm.
nurturing, kindness, compassion, resting, acceptance, all those kinds of things, which we don't value a lot. We think that's just wasting time if we take a break.
Yeah, you're lazy and it's like hustle, 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 do, do, do.
Right,
Um, I once heard, and I loved it, that we're not human doings, we're human beings.
right, right.
And I think, but I will tell you, I've been really working on myself practicing that the last few years. And it's interesting when I tell people sort of this sense of the slowing down and truly being, people have a hard time understanding the difference between the two, because sort of all they know is the doing side.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people and other spiritual teachers have said this, that a lot of us come to stillness through suffering.
Oh,
Something happens to us, we lose somebody, our career's over, we're sick, and a lot of us come to an awakening. Actually, I did too.
me
Uh,
too. Yeah.
so it turns out that might sound weird, but suffering that can actually be good for us, and there's more of a literature coming out about that now. Nobody wants that to happen, but if and when it does, there may be a purpose to it, and these kinds of ways of looking at things, stillness, Tai Chi, and there are others,
Mm,
um, can can be an opening to something wonderful for ourselves, and also to be more sensitive and aware of what other people are going through.
mm. So how do you, when you think about caregivers that are providing not just care, but support and love for the people living in whatever community setting, or it might even be someone at home caring for a loved one. But when you kind of think about that, that narrative care, what's something that they can do um, to really help them and also the person that they're caring for be in more of that state of being, truly being?
Yeah, I guess there are at least two things. One is the something like this course where you can find a time for yourself and find some relaxation fairly quickly, to help. The other way is through the narrative part of it, the story part of it, People can, there are different ways. A person-centered universe actually put a plug in for them because they're very good at this, um, at developing approaches that get at a person's story and what's meaningful to them. So that could be applied to the caregiver themselves or the person they're caring for. And with that kind of communication, you can come up with better ways of understanding somebody. For example, as the dementia progresses, if they have dementia, ways of understanding them rather than being overwhelmed or completely stressed out by what's happening.
Hmm. Years ago, I used to be an administrator at a nursing home, and we had a life story program that we would train volunteers. And I actually trained as a volunteer and took life stories and wrote it in the person's their voice. And I always remember we had somebody that lived in the community, and she would just constantly be complaining about things, and just always felt negative when you were around her. And she shared her life story, and the whole story was just kind of trauma after trauma. I remember from when she was little, remember getting bullied in school. And our chaplain at the time was the person that was the volunteer that took her story. And he asked her, and he said, "Do you have anything that was positive or good in your life that you want to share?" And she said, "No."
Oh,
And that just knowing that reframed just how I saw it, because it probably wasn't true. There's probably one good thing that happened in her life, but the fact that she felt like she went through her life and had not one good thing happen was it completely changed how I looked at her. And I know for a lot of the staff too, like the level of compassion that we had for her after that, and trying to understand her perspective of her life. It was really profound.
right, right. And you're touching on the idea that narrative care is not high tech.
Yeah.
It's really a matter of, well, not merely. It's takes training, I think, and practice to become a good listener.
Mm,
So, with
yes.
my colleague and I, Bill Randall, have done a lot of workshops with professionals, physicians, nurses, OTs, PTs, pastoral care people, and we walk them through a number of ways of becoming more sensitive to another person's story, and that so then they can be more aware, like you as you're suggesting, and then so that would change the expectations you would have from that person, right? And
Yes.
if you don't go in with the expectations, maybe something good would come out of that. You don't know. There's often surprises.
Yeah.
Uh, and just to give you an idea of how simple it can be, with the dementia and Tai Chi class that I teach, there was one gentleman who couldn't speak, just would sort of mumble hello, and he could move one finger like this. And but he'd come to every class and he would do whatever he did. Um, and then one day I came in and he was seated at the back of the class and he looked really sad. He didn't look good at all. So I thought, what's going on here? So I went up to him and I said, Frank, um, I think you like to sit in the front of the class, don't you? And he just squeezed my hand. So I took him to the front of the class. He smiled. It was great. It was all good after that.
Wow.
So that was a lesson for me, a way to, it's narrative care without using story parts
Yeah.
of the story, but it's still narrative care.
Yeah. And in the slowing down too, the ability to see that in him. And so if you had been rushing, setting up for class and,
Right.
not paying attention to those clues that he was giving, that wouldn't have happened. He would have been, still sitting in the back of the room, maybe sulking about it. And the fact that we have all these opportunities. I think sometimes, in our field, we so often we look at these things like, oh, we took, a group of residents to Disney World and we did this thing, all these grand gestures, which are wonderful. But it really is, people's lives are these little moments, like you noticing he did not have the same face on that he typically has, and why that might be. But that does take somebody slowing down. So when we think about how busy staff and team members are in an organization, um, often very task driven and so forth, what thoughts do you have in a way that sort of feels doable for people to begin to slow down a bit and look for that that awareness of what's happening around them?
There are there are many pathways to stillness. I wrote a book of that title, which is available on Amazon if anyone's interested.
That's
Uh,
Pathways to Stillness?
yes,
Yes,
and
perfect.
and it goes into more background and detail of a lot of the things that I'm talking about. Um, this particular course that I designed with Person-Centered Universe and another colleague uh, from the Netherlands, Razeb. And what this does, it's meant for folks who are professional caregivers, or it could be an informal caregiver. And you're right, everyone's so busy, but you need to carve out maybe 40 minutes a week for the online part of it is self-directed for 3 weeks, 3 sessions. And then we have 6 sessions of live where we teach the participants about Tai Chi, uh, about how to do a number of moves, this Seated Tai Chi program that I designed.
Mm.
So within that 5 weeks, or plus encouraging them to do it a bit on their own, they have to carve out, a half hour, 40 minutes here and there. But they all say, wow, did this ever help me? And it really helps me in my work, because you learn how to design a session with residents or with your colleagues. So you have a double thing. You get it for yourself, and then you're able to communicate it to other people.
Wow. So it's sort of a train the trainer.
Yeah. And
Wonderful. Yeah.
so far, it's been very well received. More than a number of times we've done it. So that's a structured kind of thing. There are other pathways to stillness, and folks can find their own creative ways to find stillness. Some folks, it's gardening or music or reading, or all the creative arts are actually, there's stillness built into that. I haven't mentioned the present moment yet, but that's one of the keys of this is that when you're doing Tai Chi or meditation or any other pathway to stillness, it brings you to the present moment.
Yes.
And in the present moment, there's no anxiety or depression. It's just there. And that's the remarkable thing about people with dementia, that there's something still there, that there's still a spirit. There's a stillness. Still, I would argue, there's still a stillness part of them that we can reach with, art therapy, music therapy would be a couple of other examples. One of my Dutch colleagues said, it's like when we're doing these activities, we go past the disease. The disease disappears temporarily. So then you ask the question, who are we?
Yes.
We all have that center of stillness. So we can all get access to that. And the big thing is, again, going from doing to being, to stop, slow down, take a breath. And it doesn't take much if you can only do that to start feeling something different and improve your quality of life.
Yeah. Listening to you share, the 30 or 40 minutes for the course. And, if you would have said to me a few years ago, commit 30, 40 minutes to slow. I would say, I don't have 30, 40 minutes. I'm busy. Like I got too much to do. And it would have been, all that. And now I've, because of my crisis or whatever we called it earlier, I've meditated, for the last 6 years. And I always say, like, it feels like a drug to me. I just can't, I can't imagine my life. And I know how much better my life is because I've slowed down. And to see the ripple effect of that too. I was in the airport yesterday and I went through TSA, and the TSA person said to me, "You're so happy. Are you always this happy?" And so anyway, so we started just having a conversation about the slowing down. And I said, yeah, because I know an airport, it's like, it's the energy there. It really can throw me off. So I intentionally have to go into it. But it was from meditation that morning that allowed me to go into it in a place where I'm coming from, not of stress, but of one of trying to maintain my vibration and do what I can to raise that of the others around me. And so I just share that because I think sometimes when people hear, committing 30, 40 minutes. So I don't know, and I would love your thoughts just as we kind of wrap up here at the end. And if there's any questions, throw them please into our comments. We'll see those and I can ask a question. But, my question would be, if somebody doesn't feel like they have 30 minutes, maybe they've got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What's the best way to utilize those 10 minutes to come to a place of more stillness so they can really truly be present for themselves, first of all, and for those that they are supporting and caring for?
Yeah, I should say the 30 to 40 minutes is about the course.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I would think that's well worth it because, like I said, I would never have thought I would have had it. But to your point, like you said earlier, like once people go through it, you realize. So, I mean, that commitment to something that is life changing,
right,
is really nothing, right? I always say to people, you probably complain 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Like you probably spent 30 minutes complaining about something. So something like this course that can help you make your life better is well worth that commitment.
Yeah, and once you learn it, you can do it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You can sit while you learn a few movements that you could go in a closet or or go in a corner somewhere for 2 minutes. Just do it. The breathing is very important, like meditation. I mean, the simplest form of meditation is just sit down and follow your breath. Paradoxically, though, it turns out to be not so easy. But that is one basic way of calming down. You'll probably think you're going crazy when you first try meditation, but that just tells you what's this monkey mind is doing.
Yes.
So you develop the ability to watch it and just watch it and stay with your breathing. It takes a lot of practice, but I think just anything that can switch you from that doing to being and giving yourself a break, which you richly deserve. I mean, and I think in the world as it is today, we desperately all need a way to find stillness.
Yes.
And I think we're finding more people coming, talking about it as well and writing about it. And so that's a good thing. And maybe it's even like we talk about suffering has a benefit. Maybe the tough things that are happening right now are going to bring more people to themselves and to being kind and compassionate to other people.
Yeah.
So part of
I believe.
Yeah. And so finding your own pathway to stillness, there are formal ones like we're talking about meditation or prayer, Tai Chi. But there are a lot of informal ones too. Just some activity that makes you feel like getting up in the morning, has some meaning.
Yes.
That's really the key to this. Is it's not just a mechanical. You can't think your way to stillness.
Yes.
That's what turns some people off because they can't get that you can't think and think and think and be still. You have to be still, and then you'll get something, but you can't expect to get anything. It's,
Yes,
you know,
yes. And that's what I notice most with people is when I talk about meditation, people will say, I'm not very good at it. That's, that you have to be perfect at meditation, right? It's so, once again, we're in our head
yeah,
doing instead of truly being. This was such a rich, rewarding conversation for me personally. And I know it's going to be for many people that are watching it now and that will see it later. And I thank you for the work that you're doing. And it just hit me as you were speaking that I began my meditation journey in the beginning of COVID
uh,
with a bunch of Canadians. So it was the Canadians and me, somebody I met in an airport when I was stuck in an airport and I was all stressed out and I was there for like 20 hours. And I just happened upon somebody who had just gotten back from a silent retreat
oh,
and he was calm as a cucumber. So anyway, when COVID hit, I joined his online meditation group of all his neighbors. So it was me and the New Brunswick folks that were
neat.
all meditating. So it all comes full circle.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Gary, thank you for your work in the world. We've shared your link so people can check out the course. For yourself, check it out. For the people that you support and serve and care for and love in your organization, and the ripple effect upon your family and not just work, not just home, but really our world. You make a difference when you are in stillness, when you're slowing down. So thanks so much for the conversation and for your work in the world.
Thank you very much. And we all have a center of stillness, even though we might not recognize it.
Yeah, it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks again. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for being part of it.